Should you go private chef or personal chef? Let's talk about it. Hey there, Chef Shelly. I've had a personal chef business for over 15 years, and when I'm not cooking for my clients, I help passionate cooks just like you even decide if you want to start a personal chef business, and if you do, how to build a business that you love, getting paid to cook on your own terms. If that sounds like something you want to do, be sure to hit subscribe and ring the little bell so that you never miss one of my videos. A lot of times when people decide that they do want to take that leap and get paid to do what they love, and they know that restaurant work is not the right fit for them, they decide to kind of go the private chef or personal chef route. But there can be some confusion about what the difference is. So I'm going to go through the major differences and the pros and cons today so you can make a decision that's best for you. Because honestly, at the end of the day, one is not better or worse than the other. They're different. And so you can decide on what is the best fit for you. When we're talking about a private chef is an employee for one client or family, and they provide meals for them in the client's home on a full-time basis. Get there in the morning, you prepare breakfast and serve it, lunch and serve it, dinner and serve it. You probably also manage the kitchen, keep their groceries stocked. Maybe they decide they want something you don't have, you have to run out and get it. You're sort of at their beck and call. Sometimes private chefs even live on the premises. Sometimes they don't, but they still travel with them on vacation and stuff. They're an employee, they get paid a salary. They still, being a single employee, probably don't have benefits, but you might. Those are sort of the things to consider. It's just a basic description about how being a private chef works. If you're thinking about being a full-time employee to one client because it sounds a lot better, you know you want to be full-time, you know that you don't want to work to get clients, you just want to be doing the cooking, that might be a good fit. So let's talk about the pros. How about steady income? Like I said, private chefs are employees who get a regular salary, and that might be something that's really important to you. Next is consistent schedule. If you're just working for one client, you're pretty much going to know when you need to be there. It's going to be the same week after week unless there's some major change with vacations and things. So that might be important to you. If you really want to work for one client and really have a close relationship with them, get a deep understanding of what they want to eat and how they want to eat it, be on hand to really tweak things and make them just the way they like them and see them enjoying the food that you've prepared, private chef would be the way to go. Also, having that control of being in their kitchen full time, all the time, every day, you get to have the benefit of all their equipment, making sure they have everything that you need, encouraging them maybe to purchase equipment that you need to make the food that they want and make it the best for them, and maybe even working with them on a budget for their groceries. Now let's talk a little bit about the cons of being a private chef. If you're cooking for one client, the same client, all the time, that can kind of limit your variety, your creativity. If you kind of like to do different things, maybe you want to do some cooking lessons, you want to do some meal prep, you want to do some catering. Finding that kind of diversity can be a little bit difficult when you're working for one family. High expectations, right? When you're cooking for one family or client who is paying for an employee full time to take care of all their food needs, they can have very high expectations. And those expectations might not even just be about the food, which could be stressful enough, but it could also be their expectations of how long you're expected to be there, the type of service you are required to prepare, if you are expected to travel with them. They may have an entirely different set of expectations than your wanting or prepared to do. Another con can be dependency on one client. Your job security is tied to that client. If they move, if they decide they don't like your services or they want to go with a different chef, or maybe they do not want to have a private chef anymore, then you're out of a job and you'll need to start finding a new job. Of course, that's really true of any job, right? This can also be kind of an intense work environment. Like you said, your client might expect you to be on call or work long hours. It can just be important to set their expectation. Those are some things to consider about being a private chef. Now let's talk about a personal chef business. So as a personal chef, you run your own business. You decide the services you want to offer, whether you want to do personal chef services, also known as meal prep services. And if you're doing those, you do them to multiple clients. You still typically cook in the client's home. You're probably not using a rented or commercial kitchen. You prepare the food for them that you've worked out together with them, but then you leave, right? So it's not a full-time job. Typically, if you're doing that type of service, you're doing it once a week or every other week, or maybe even just occasionally for a client who might just only need it once a month. And of course, then there are all the other services you can offer, like catering small events, whether it's sit-down dinners or small buffets or brunches or anything like that, cooking lessons, kitchen organization, meal plans, all those different things, right? So let's get into the pros. Of course, a personal chef business has more flexibility. You get to set your own schedule. You get to choose your own clients, right? That can be really important to a lot of people. And there can also be more creative freedom. Now, on one hand, you might say, I'm still cooking for a client. I still have to prepare the food that they like. But if you are a vegetarian, you only work with clients who are vegetarians. No one's gonna say, well, we're having people over tonight and you're gonna need to make a rack of lamb. You get to decide what you wanna cook and the type of client you're going to take on, right? That can also give you a lot more creative freedom depending on what your cooking style is. Again, when you have your own business, if you're doing different services, you can have multiple income streams. Again, whether that's doing meal prep services and catering, or cooking lessons, cooking demonstrations, pantry prep, or anything. And this can reduce your sort of dependency on only having one income source, like being an employee. Again, with the flexibility of having your own business and making all these decisions, you get to control your workload. You get to take time off when you need it. You don't have to be at the beck and call or at the schedule of the employer. That, of course, is not to say that it is all weighted in the favor of a personal chef business. Not at all. So let's talk about some cons, right? Some people find it very challenging to get and keep clients, and so for them, there can be inconsistent income. It can vary on the number of clients you have, if you have high client turnover, or even if you're focusing on catering. Catering jobs can be seasonal. It's also not something that clients do every weekend, so that can vary your income too. Another thing that you have to handle in a personal chef business that you don't as a private chef is all the business responsibilities, right? Managing your invoices, you're having to do your marketing to get clients, you need to do your bookkeeping, there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of decision making, all that kind of thing. Whereas again, when you're an employee, they just give you a W-2 at the end of the year and you just do it that way, right? So there can be a big difference there in the amount of work on the administrative businessy side. When it gets down to equipment and supplies, this can be, a little bit different in that if you're a private chef, you're in their kitchen, you're working with what they have, you can have them buy things that you might need. As a personal chef business, You're working in the client's home, but you may have a client who doesn't have what you need. You may be needing to take your own pots, pans, cutting boards, maybe some tools, and of course we all take our own knives anyway, so that's just right on the table. But as a personal chef business, especially if you want to do a little bit of catering, there is some equipment that you might need to invest in that you wouldn't if you were a private chef. Then it comes down to client interaction. Now, again, this can kind of be a con on both of them, but as a personal chef business, you need to have great communication with a client, but it might only be on a weekly basis, right? You're not going to be in an environment where you're with them all the time. So you might have to work a little bit harder to get the information from them that you need to cook for them every week if you're doing weekly meal prep services. Then when you're doing that kind of service and you have multiple clients, that's just more people that you're going to be needing to manage sort of the communication of every week. So let's talk about a little bit more of a comparison now that we've kind of detailed all the pros and cons. So again, when it comes to income stability, as a private chef, you're getting a salary. As a personal chef business, it's going to depend on your client base and the retention of how you're able to keep them. When it comes to creativeness, as a private chef, it might be limited because you have to deal with the preferences of only one client. As a personal chef business, you get to decide what you cook and you can tailor whatever it is you want to do to the client's specific needs if you need to. How about work schedule? As a private chef, again, employee, you're probably going to have a pretty predictable schedule, even if it might be intense or demanding or involve travel. As a personal chef business, you are in control of setting your schedule. So it's more flexible. You'll have, the opportunity if you want to have better work-life balance. But again, that can require self-discipline. When it comes to client relationships, private chefs get a deep, long-term, personalized relationship with one client. In a personal chef business, you're going to have multiple clients, and some of those might be meal prep service clients that you cook for years. Some of them might be come and go. Some of them might be easy and you might love them, and some of them might be more challenging and difficult to manage. Of course, again, when it comes to business responsibility, if you're a private chef employee, you're focused just primarily on showing up and cooking. Whereas if you have that personal chef business, it involves all the things like your bookkeeping, your paperwork, your filing taxes, your expenses, your income tracking, managing your clients, managing their individual recipe collections, communicating with your different clients, running your schedule, all those marketing to get clients, all those kind of things that you won't have to do if you're a private chef employee. When it comes to job security, this one, honestly, I think is a matter of opinion. Some people think that being an employee private chef is more stable because you have a job and you show up and cook and don't have to do anything else. Other people would say that having your own business is more stable because you're not going to get fired or let go. They're not going to move and you're going to have to start from ground zero. You have a diverse client base and you know that you can rely on yourself to go out and get clients when you need them. So again, that just kind of can depend on your own perspective. So really, when you're looking at being a private chef employee versus a personal chef with your own business, it really depends on what your individual preferences are and your professional goals, right? Private chefs might have more stability and a focused work environment and experience less creative freedom and maybe higher demands from working for one client. Personal chefs have more flexibility. They might have more creative opportunities doing different kind of services, even the opportunity to do services like preparing meal plans that aren't even necessarily cooking. But again, they have the challenges of managing their own business, maybe dealing with some income ups and downs, and also being the one who motivates yourself to do the work can be a challenge. So this is a lot to take in about being a private chef employee, being a personal chef business owner. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments. If you are a private chef, I'd love to hear your experience, your perspective on these things. We can get some discussion going. Because again, neither one of these are right or wrong. It's just a matter of what a good fit is for you, because the clients are out there, whether you want to work full-time for one or whether you want to have a whole bunch.